Hey, hello. Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the Knowledge Graph Conference for those who were not here yesterday and the day before. And we now have the honor to welcome Deborah McGuinness that will give us a keynote. Deborah was the recipient of the KGC Award last year. And Deborah is a longtime practitioner, researcher in the field of semantic web, ontologies, knowledge engineering in general, and she will bring us a new direction for the field today. The recipient of this year's award will be announced tomorrow morning, so be here. Deborah?
Great. Thanks very much for that gracious introduction. And I'm really thrilled to be here talking to the Knowledge Graph community. I have been in the Knowledge Graph community since way before we used the phrase Knowledge Graph, and the ontology community for many decades. And one of the benefits from being in the field for a long time and being asked to give the opening keynote is that you might get to think back and think forward and bring up a few topics that might be worthy of discussion and that might set some directions for the field. So Knowledge Graphs, the title is Knowledge Graphs in Today's Evolving Landscape and Beyond. So you can't be anywhere close to this field without realizing that the AI landscape is changing. You know, I did a few searches for some topic from some titles like how LLMs could transform the world. They're changing the game for X. I happen to choose tax filing, but for everything. And then the title for one of them, ChatGPT changes everything, which I think is true. You know, one of the take-home messages that you should get from this is we are at an inflection point that this community, this broad community, knowledge graphs, ontologies, Web3, provenance, that we can really jump on. And I think the time is now. So that's one of the take-home messages that I will remind us at the end. You know, there's surprising speed and surprising accomplishments. You know, you can't ignore the impact that they have with passing these tests that experts sometimes have trouble passing. So I'm going to collect some messages throughout this talk. One of the messages is the accomplishments of LLMs. We really need to acknowledge them, and we really need to leverage them. And so I'm going to hopefully give some topics that we can discuss on how and when we might leverage them. But what does it really mean to pass a test? So CNET had this great quote. So it can pass the bar exam, but does it matter? And I really like this. Exams are performances. They don't test how knowledgeable students are. They test how much students can cram into their brain and regurgitate for a few hours. Much of the information is subsequently forgotten, often with glee. They're closer to tests of dedication than they are of knowledge. And actually, over the last couple of days here, I've had a lot of conversations about what knowledge is anyway. And given that my PhD is in knowledge representation, that's like a topic of major interest. But do they have knowledge? Or can we use what they've got, whatever we're going to call it? So do they understand? You know, some of the important questions, I think, are when can and should we trust the results of generative AI? And can they help us figure that out? So can they tell us how they came to an answer? You know, they might be able to tell us what question they're trying to answer, whether that's the question that we put in, or whether that's a question that somehow they've decided that if they could answer that question, then they could answer the bigger question. And that's a step in the right direction, but that I don't think is enough in many settings. And can they provide the context in which their recommendations are reliable? I think the answer is no, but I think our field or our fields can help there. So there are many opportunities, and I think the opportunities kind of scream semantics and they scream knowledge graphs. And I think I'm going to convince you, or you can ask me if I haven't convinced you, that this field has a unique opportunity now. So in homework for this talk, I was using ChatGPT quite a bit. I asked it, what are knowledge graphs and why are they important for generative AI? And actually, consistent with, I think, what a lot of us are finding, they actually gave I got some pretty decent answers, and I did it a few times, and I got consistently some pretty good answers. They gave this answer gave 3 main topics. They provide more efficient organization and retrieval of information. That might be a little bit debatable, but the knowledge in a structured format, that is definitely something that we do better than generative AI currently does. Not that it can't be asked to do that, and not that it can't provide syntactically correct structure for some things, but is that syntactically correct structure containing the semantic content that we want to be in there. Secondly, knowledge graphs are more powerful and accurate processing of information. I don't think we're going to compete with the generative AIs for powerful processing of information, but accurate processing of information. And what is accuracy and how are we going to evaluate it? Knowledge graphs can provide foundations for sophisticated querying and reasoning capabilities. I went to an interesting master class yesterday by Relational AI where they gave some thought-provoking examples of what appeared to be reasoning. At a certain level, it did do some reasoning. So VJ asked it to assume the closed world assumption and then answer some questions, which was maybe a shiny object, maybe kind of a cute parlor trick, but there was some content there. So they got to start at some reasoning functionality. I'm not really sure that I'm going to use capability. But this is a place that knowledge graphs can play. And they also said knowledge graphs can extract insights and answer complex questions, can be good for search engines, recommendation systems, and virtual assistants. And third, they can provide knowledge management and collaboration, and they can help bridge communication gaps. So this collaboration and bridging of communication gaps is one of the other big points that I think our field is well poised to address. So 2 messages from this: they can help communicate and interoperate in ways that at least we can see with a declarative representation of the meaning, and provide that interoperation. And maybe not so debatably, they can help move up this pyramid, the DIKW pyramid, the data to information to knowledge to actionable wisdom. So I think this is another opportunity for this field. And then, one of the things that I'm struck by, I took my first AI class in the late 70s, and I still love AI, but we've never been in the news like we are today. I've been through AI winters, I've been through AI summers. One of my colleagues calls this the AI scorcher. Because now we are having emerging discussions and pending legislation. So like the blueprint for the AI Bill of Rights. I don't really know how we're going to make this effective and enforceable, but these topics are going to come out, whether they're coming out from government or whether they're coming out from technological bodies that try to create safe and effective systems, try to minimize discrimination, try to provide data privacy, provide notice and explanation. For those of you who know me, my thesis was on explanation in the 90s. Explanation is near and dear to my heart. I'm not happy with the explanation capabilities today of generative AI, and there's tremendous opportunities there. And then these human alternatives and consideration. So an opportunity to say, hey, this is wrong, and hey, I need some recourse option. I'm not seeing that today in generative AI. So one of the things that knowledge graphs may be poised to help with is to address these policy needs and requirements and potentially at least expose accountability issues. Maybe not solve them, but this is something that we need to address. So again, if you ask OpenAI, what are generative AI limitations? And actually, when I post this, I've got links for everything that I pulled from and all the questions that I posed to OpenAI because I try to be a transparency researcher. So one challenge for generative AI is to ensure that the generated data is coherent, consistent, and semantically meaningful. And this is where knowledge graphs can come in handy. So again, we're very well aligned with the knowledge graph strengths of semantics, provenance, relationships, and potentially logical relationships that are well exposed and well defended. So if we just look at some challenges and strengths of large language models and knowledge graphs, they kind of align pretty interestingly. So if you ask OpenAI, it's got challenges around coherence, provenance, semantics, and explainability. If you actually, I did ask OpenAI what the challenges were for knowledge graphs, and this is a paraphrase of what it said. The time required to build them, at least required to build good ones, the people and the skill sets required to build them, the scalability, and the integration across multiple knowledge graphs. You know, these, in my mind, align quite well. And so, debatably, and maybe not so debatably, knowledge graphs and large language models, they might be a marriage made in heaven or wherever your happy place is. But they can at least be a complementary marriage. And one take-home message is this, and the other take-home message that goes along with this is we've got a time now that we could really jump on. And I think if we don't jump as a community, we're going to be left behind. So I'm hoping that this helps create some discussions where we get motivated to work as a group and work collaboratively with these people who some people claim are putting us out of business. So I just was at TED, Technology, Entertainment, and Design, a couple weeks ago. AI was a giant theme at TED, and the discussion kept coming up from the stage from Chris Anderson, among others. Is AI a threat or an opportunity? Well, I think most reasonable, thoughtful people say both. I pulled this from Gizmodo. Here are the jobs our new AI overlords plan to kill. And this is its list. But the list goes on. And, there's some justification for all these fields as well as other fields that large language models can do significant portions of some of these job specifications. So I also went to Austin last week to the web conference, to Provenance Week, and to Web Science Conference. And the first day was a health science day where the new dean of the medical school, the Dell Medical School at UT Austin, she was speaking to health professionals, and she said a version of this. She said, generative AI will not replace clinicians, but clinicians who do not collaborate with generative AI will be replaced. And I believe that. And actually, my generalization of it is this, that generative AI will not replace most knowledge professionals, thus most of us in this room, but many knowledge professionals who do not collaborate with AI will be replaced, or at least their jobs are going to be modified. And I'm telling my students this, I'm telling the world this, because again, I think we need to really learn about what these systems can do and how we can help them and how they can help us so that we can be more than the sum of our parts. So my message 5 is collaborate. And now the rest of the talk is going to be just discussing some potential collaboration areas. Again, I asked ChatGPT what collaboration areas might make some sense. And it suggested transparency and provenance. Wow, we're really well suited there. We've got a World Wide Web recommendation for provenance on the web. We've got a lot of work in transparency. Accuracy. We've got a lot of at least declarative representations for what it means to be accurate. And then we've got ways to define accuracy. Privacy. Nobody's really solved this, at least on the LLM side, but we at least have stabs at it in knowledge graphs and in Web3. Fairness and at least we can say who's getting this, who isn't getting this, what it's been trained on. And the accountability, I think this is an enormous opportunity that we're only scratching the surface on. And actually, these are just some collaboration areas. I think there's more that we can look at. So message 7 is explore many opportunities and create exploration sandboxes. I'm going to show you a little bit about an exploration sandbox that I and a number of colleagues at RPI are creating. And I'm not saying that this is the be all and end all. We're not going to spin out a startup company on this, at least I don't think we are. But something like these sandboxes, I think we all should be doing this. So this is our chat BS. I didn't name this. Actually, I don't know whether you named this. Jamie McCusker is one of the contributors, one of the primary contributors to this project, along with John Erickson, Enrique Santos, Sola Shariah, myself, Jim Hendler, and pretty much everybody at the Tetherless World Constellation, which is within RPI, has been chatting about this. So, how can we start to think about whether the answers that we're getting make sense? So this fact checker, it uses the OpenAI completion API service. It constructs an entity relation graph in the form of entity 1, relationship, entity 2. So, the motto for knowledge graphs is started by, or the blog that Amit Sangal wrote, things not strings. So this is a thing relationship. And then it uses entity linking to look up both the entities and the relationships against your choice of resource. Jamie chose Wikidata, or the group chose Wikidata. And then it constructs a JSON LD graph as it proceeds. So you can ask a question. In this, we were asking, what's the oldest technical university in the United States? If you ask, by the way, RPI is, but if you ask it, it'll get a few different answers. You can ask it a number of times, and then you can link to the Wikidata entity for that, and then you can see the Wikidata page related to that. You can see the groundings. Groundings are one of our special sauces, and one of the things that generative AI does not do for us. And then, we can highlight things that look like they need additional discussion. You can download JSON LD. And then, you can ask things like, who is Deborah? It did a decent job, but there's a number of things that are true and there's some things that are false. Like I didn't found the Rensselaer Institute for Data Exploration and Application, but a lot of the rest of it is actually accurate. But then you could go ask questions. So this right now is made for to support human exploration. We saw, I don't know whether Jan's already left, but Jan's was in the room in an earlier session where he gave a nice little demo where he then turned around and asked structured queries to web chat to say, can you find evidence for one of these statements? So we could do that as well. And this is one of the ones that I really like. It says Deborah McGuinness won the 2021 Turing Award. But then I didn't. Somebody else did. His picture's there. And then we did this question right before I was going to the web conference, where I got to hear the Turing Award lecture from Bob, who's in the audience. And I told him, hey, Chat GPT says I won the Turing Award. And then he said, oh, it said I did it too, but a little while ago. And then he actually did. And then I said it from a panel at WebSci, and then one of the panelists said, it's just predictive. So I'm waiting. But you need to be able to explore these kinds of findings. And you could ask then follow-ups. It knows that I didn't win the Turing Award if you ask it that, but it didn't figure that out to begin with. And here's the picture of how our fact checker went together. I'm not claiming that this is the right architecture or one that other people should pick up, but we all should be exploring these kinds of architectures, finding places that large language models help knowledge graphs, that knowledge graphs help large language models, and ultimately that we're more than the sum of our parts, and we're transparent, and we have at least a shot at being accountable. And assessment, I think, is an enormous opportunity. So that was kind of one sandbox for assessment. This is another sandbox for assessment. I and a number of colleagues, and I need their names on this. Well, actually, we've got some papers on this. I'm part of the DARPA, the Defense Advanced Research Projects Agency Machine Common Sense program, which I was super excited to get in. It was started by one of my favorite DARPA program managers. He went to the kickoff meeting, set up a bunch of metrics for a 4-year program, and then retired the next day. But those metrics, and I came in as a knowledge representation person. My team was going to build this co-build this common sense knowledge graph, and it was going to help common sense on the web. And then all these language programs started beating these metrics, and they beat year 4 metrics in year 1. So, the writing was on the wall. But the writing for me was, I'm not going to write that common sense knowledge graph because they don't really need them. But what we really need is better metrics. The metrics that one of my favorite program managers in all time set up were not adequate, in my opinion, and in the whole program's opinion, for evaluating whether these systems really had common sense. So we were doing some context-aware exploration of ways to evaluate common sense. And again, at TED, if you listen to Yejing Chao from the Allen Institute, who's also on that program, she gave a nice talk at TED where she was saying, we really need common sense to help figure out, I think it was Lena, somebody asked the question the other day, how can I see the Eiffel Tower from Rome? And one of the answers was, move the Eiffel Tower to Rome. Well, you need some common sense to realize that's a bad plan. It's better for you to go to Paris or go to a museum and to see pictures of it. But that plan to move the Eiffel Tower to Rome just makes 0 sense. So we need assessment opportunities and tools to really provide ways to evaluate these systems. And I think common sense as part of that is one key component that's, despite DARPA's investment, is still understudied. So assessment tools, I think, are an enormous opportunity. My third to last message is harmonized data portals are going to be around. They're still needed. I've got a picture here of the National Institute of Environmental Health Science funded project Human Health Exposure Analysis Repository. My team, I lead the data science resource of that, which is my job, is to create an ontology enabled system and an ontology to cover all of exposure, everything you breathe, everything you've been exposed to, and all of your potential health outcomes. I got a lot of job security. But to really provide meta-analysis capabilities, we're trying to pull together all these studies, and you need precise alignment. I know that these tools can start to do alignment, but the precision of the alignment is not there and not adequate for making life and death kind of decisions on medical interventions that might save somebody or that might accelerate their death. So these harmonized data portals, they're still needed, and knowledge graphs and semantics are a component of that. And we do things like expose things by the different kinds of chemical studies, by the different kinds of conditions, lots of counting. I know that with Sal Khan's advising to ChatGPT, it just got much better at math, but it's not perfect at math. But it's improving. But I don't think it's going to get, it doesn't have the foundation. Despite what some people are saying, that give it enough data and these properties emerge, I'm not ready to buy that. I'm not disputing that they're getting good results, but I'm still not ready to buy that it's going to be the be all and end all of that. So message 10, hybrid AI solutions and pipelines, the whole, how everything fits together, provide an opportunity. Here's an image from an IBM AI Horizons Network funded project that we're working on that basically does precision medicine with a lot of different components of AI. So second to last slide, I've got a collection of the messages. we shouldn't ignore the accomplishments and of large language models, and we really need to leverage them. And more than that, we really need to jump on them and show them and the world how our kind of technology can make a difference. Knowledge graphs can help with communication and interoperation. They can help large language models move up the DI-KI pyramid. They can provide some foundation, not enough, not all of the foundation, but some foundation for addressing policy and accountability needs. I believe that they can be this marriage kind of made in heaven, but I think the time is now. And mostly, potentially my biggest take-home message is we need to collaborate and create these partnerships. Or, there's a lot of language like co-pilot or virtual assistant. I think we're in a really good place to do that. And creating these exploration sandboxes, I think, is part of our future. Assessment tools, I think, are one of the biggest opportunities, and we need to be hybrid. So my final messages are collaboration's key. I want not to be replaced. I want to partner with AI so that I don't become one of those many knowledge professionals who is replaced. And I'm using Wendy Hall's phrase of the AI scorcher. The generative AI explosion, or in her opinion, the AI scorcher, and I actually subscribe to that, I think it provides the knowledge graph community, and I'm including knowledge or ontologies, provenance, Web3, with a unique opportunity to shine. And then more than that, I actually believe that if we don't jump on this opportunity, we're going to be left behind. So with that, I'll take questions. I see Aura, I see Dean, and I see Juan.
Thank you for this. I have a comment and I have a question. So you said we could be left behind if we don't seize this opportunity. When I look at the long span of AI, I sort of see another kind of opportunity here, which is that we could truly mess things up now. And I lived through the AI winter. I've been doing this for a long time. I lived through the AI winter. I don't want to do that again. So that's my comment. My question to you is about these language models and handling derivative work. So scenario could be I ask a language model to write a song, let's say in the style of The Who. And a song comes back. What are the legal implications of that? Because obviously it has to draw from existing work of this band. Any thoughts on that?
I love this. Actually, at the Decentralized Knowledge Graph workshop that was yesterday, this is one of the discussion points that we had, where we could pose a partial solution. We get it out on a blockchain or some kind of decentralized annotated resource, and then we start to add the metadata. So Aura said this, it used this resource. I really want that in my provenance. I'm going to encode it in Bravo, but get it encoded in some kind of provenance chain and get it in some kind of blockchain-y infrastructure so that the world can see somebody posted this, somebody expanded on this, somebody built on top of it, and somebody used these resources so we can get credit and blame. Okay, who's next?
Unfortunately, we're at time.
I see 2:55.
It's 9:30. Okay. Thank you. But it's Juan. Juan wanted to ask a question, and
okay.
You guys.
All right. Knowledge engineering and prompt engineering. How do they collaborate?
Perfect opportunity. Prompt engineering is incredibly hot. What they're making 300,000 according to some headline that I saw the other day. So I think encoding a smart prompt can be informed by knowledge graphs and semantics. And then we can get maybe a little bit more structure, and we can start to understand where prompts are better and worse. So I think there's great opportunity there, but I don't know that prompt engineering is going to be enormous in 5 years. I think it's going to go away.
Thank you very much again, Deborah.
Thanks.